Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls alike, welcome back. It's the 9th edition of the Save the Crew. Today's topic, the Overton Window. Now that the holiday season is over and 2018 is nearly upon us, I think it's time to do a reset. In the first edition of the Save the Crew vlog, we talked about how if Anthony Precourt, Don Garber, and the various owners of Major League Soccer were allowed to do this to Columbus, it would set a dangerous precedent going forward that they could move any team at any time, thereby destroying any community they wanted to for whatever reason they chose. Now, this might be the most important aspect of this movement, and it might be the most important point that we're trying to make. So I think it is worth revisiting. So to add some clarity to the whole, if they can do this to Columbus, they can do this to anybody thing, I'd like to talk to you about something that is known as the Overton Window. Also known as the window of discourse. This is a concept in political science that basically says there's a very specific range of ideas that the public, or in our case, the North American soccer fan, is willing to accept. Basically, everything inside this window is sensible and or expected. And anything outside of this window is basically unacceptable, unthinkable, or radical. So let's go ahead and consider this not from a traditional political perspective, but from the perspective of Don Garber and the owners of the current Major League Soccer teams. Now, if the powers that be in American soccer, if the Soccer Don and his cronies want to drastically change what is viewed as acceptable in the eyes of their consumers, they're not going to start just outside of the current accepted window of discourse. They're not going to start on the fringes. They want to go all the way on the outside, on the unthinkable end of this spectrum. They want to start right there. Now, why exactly would they want to start there? Why would they want to appear to be going for broke straight out of the gate? Because forcing people to consider an unthinkable or an unacceptable or a radical idea, even if those people fight back, even if they gain traction and gain the support of every other group of consumers who aren't being targeted, even if all those things happen, it still makes all less unthinkable things seem less crazy and seem less radical in comparison. No matter the outcome, no matter what happens at the end of the day, the very targeting of that crazy end of the spectrum moves the window of acceptable in that direction. So let's say you're Don Garber, and let's say you're the ownership of Major League Soccer, and you want to completely annihilate the power of your consumer, of the North American soccer fan. You want complete and total control over everything and anything and anyone that you view as being lower than you. Let's say that's your motive. You're going to start by having an owner of a current soccer team, no matter how viable or strong that current business is. You're going to start by having an owner of that team threaten to move that team to another city. And again, this team's sustainability or health in its current market, those things are completely irrelevant. Now, you may lose that fight at first, but in the process, your consumers become more accustomed to and more accepting of the fleecing of an entire community, the pitting of one American city against another American city, and the deceitful use of mysterious metrics, which were gathered by sabotaging this team in question to validate your treachery. Now, here is the most important part of this entire thing. So listen up. They don't care whether or not you accept being destroyed or watching the destruction of others so long as you get used to it. They are setting a tone. They are setting a precedent that this kind of act is not outside of the normal, because they think that you are most valuable to them when you are completely and totally numb to the suffering of others. They're not concerned with how ridiculous they look. They're concerned with how normal everything else is beginning to look in comparison. Not only do they want that accepted window of discourse moved, they want it to be moved most importantly, without you realizing that there's movement. They don't want you to know what's really going on. The moving of a viable franchise, the shady and deceitful business metrics used to validate that move, and the destruction of the charter member of the league itself, all of these things would have been viewed as unthinkable 10 years ago when TFC came into the league and ceremoniously kicked off the MLS 2.0 era. But now, they are all realities that we're getting used to, while they're busy dramatically twirling their mustaches on the extreme far end of the crazy pants spectrum. In other words, not only do they want this window of discourse shifted, they're actually doing it. They're actually right now in the process of shifting it. I often find myself thinking that the people who are in charge, that the people who are in power in American soccer must be complete and total idiots. Your Don Garbers and your Dave Greelys, because, specifically because they appear to be too dense to realize that they're confusing their mistakes for hardships. You see, a mistake is something that you did. It's your responsibility. A hardship is something that you had done to you, probably something that you had no say in. Now, it's verifiable that the failing business metrics that the league and that Precourt Sports Ventures point to in Columbus happened since Precourt took control of the Columbus Crew. Attendance falling this past year, it's not a hardship. It's a reality that exists because of the mistakes made by Precourt Sports Ventures and by the league itself. But you know what? The reality is that these guys aren't dumb. They're not idiots. They are shady business people playing a game of chess with all of us, and one of their favorite moves is changing the nature of reality, shifting that window of discourse in their favor, changing the very definition of words. Mistakes? They're no longer mistakes. They're hardships. The window has shifted enough already for that reality to exist. This is Precourt Sports Ventures, this is Don Garber, and this is Major League Soccer saying, I did something to you and it is your fault. Stop hitting yourself. It's victim blaming and it is disgraceful. So, to recap, this is, again, what we mean when we say that if it can happen to us, it can happen to anybody. We're talking about our team, we're talking about your team, we're talking about our community, and we're talking about your community. So that feeling that you have in the pit of your stomach right now, it's not just disgust, and it's not just anger. It's disgust, and it's anger, and it is the shifting of that Overton window to a new normal. It is them setting a new tone and defining a new reality for everyone else. It is the very few of them versus all of us. Right now, there's no question. They are winning. The only question that remains is, what are you gonna do about it? Thank you for watching, and save the crew.
The future of Columbus and the future of the Columbus Crew SC are tied together. We need each other to succeed.